So I say this coming from the perspective of a scientist. I started out my career in a university. I have a chemistry degree. You guys hear me talking all about this magic stuff, all this energy stuff. I have a chemistry degree. That's where I started. Let me tell you about science. The real thing about science. Because what I noticed in the last couple of years is that y'all seem to think that science is some guy in a tower that's yelling stuff that we put into headlines, and then what? You can take those headlines, post it on your wall, send it to a friend or a relative, say, look what science says. I'm right in that argument we had. Because science says, no, that's not how it works. No. Listen, science is a story. Science is a process by which we write down the things that we did very, very specifically. We write it down, and then we do the thing. And then we write it down. We write down what we observed, what happened, in our way of observing it. We write it down. A scientific paper has different parts. It's got a it's got an abstract, an introduction, materials, procedure, observations, and conclusion. Abstract is all of it. It's squeezed into the short part. If I run a test and I write it down, what happened? If I go and do that every single day or 1,000,000 times, eventually I'm telling you a story about something that happened. It's just got a lot of trials. Ooh-wee. I'm sure that you're going to give me some flack for that, all you science nerds out there. And I don't say nerd in a bad way at all. I mean, I'm a nerd in various different things. Everybody's got their things they love the most and we nerd out about them. But I feel as though science has a specific authority in this world that we are living in at the moment. This culture where truly you can do this experiment yourself. I have recommended it to many people. I can say, and I can back up, that I indeed was a science teacher. I have a science degree. But at the same time, I can walk up to anybody in a conversation with anybody at all. I can tell them that I was once a science teacher, a chemistry biology teacher for high school. And then I can just tell them anything and just watch them believe me. You can try this too, truly, if you want to. Just tell somebody that you are a scientist or that you are a science teacher, and then just tell them something, like whether it's true or not, and just watch their face. It's crazy, because what science is really meant to do, the heart of science, is it's telling you to question, to accept that everybody is just perceiving this world and I'm hearing stories about it. Because I'm perceiving this world and I can't be everywhere that I am not. And there's lots of space in this place that I am not all the time, right? So I'm very, very limited in my perspective. And that's an important concept in science, is that I don't know anything, but I must accept that unless I see it for myself, then I am taking somebody else's word for it. Actually, the Scientific Society of London, their motto is nullius in verba, which is Latin for do not believe the words. Basically, take no one's word for it. See it for yourself. And that's kind of the shtick of the science paper, is we make a report and we tell you exactly what we did. We introduce it with the idea behind the concept, like why we did it, and then we tell you exactly what we did. We tell you what stuff we need to use, exactly how we use them, exactly how we set them up, and then exactly what we saw, so that you can then go into our paper and take that little bit about what we did exactly, because we wrote it down exactly. It's very, very precise. Like, that was the most annoying part of science classes and labs, was the exactness. Good God. But you can take that. You can take that paper, that portion of the paper, and then you yourself can then go and do that exactly. Follow it to the letter exactly as they said it, because then you're following what they're doing. And then you observe. You just let it happen. And you see if your observations are different than theirs. And now we're talking science. Now we're getting into it, because you've done it. Hopefully when you did it, you wrote it down too. And then you can write down your observations. And now we have scientific discourse, baby. Like, that's the best. I mean, we're in there. Oh man, we got it. And that's the best, juiciest part of science. However, if you're not going to do all of those things and make the experiment for yourself, then you have to accept that your beliefs are now being informed by someone else's story, someone else's scientific paper. And hey, maybe it was a bunch of them. Like, maybe it was a bunch of people who tried the same things and they got the same results. You know, that's reasonable to be like, oh, okay, I will give my authority to the amount of different people who have all done the same experiment and all gotten the same results. And I will say that what they say is what it is, even though I haven't seen it for myself, right? Like, I haven't particularly seen them shine the light through a slit in a paper and then watched another slit form many, many bands. Look up the double slit experiment. It's very cool, very trippy stuff. I haven't seen it personally. Like, I really haven't. I think I did see it once with a laser. But even still, that was like, But I've seen diagrams of it, and I've talked about it, and I've heard other people talk about it a lot, and I accept that to be my truth, the authority of what this world is. It's a story. And as far as I'm concerned, I am in charge of me, and I am in charge of whose stories that I believe are true, and who I want to believe in, and why. The why is kind of my personal reasons. Usually it's because it makes sense to me. It feels good. I like it. Whatever reason there is behind that. But yeah, we're pretty much always just taking in stories. And if it undergoes a specific process, the story is then called scientific. But please, 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 if you can take one thing away from this podcast episode that has the word science in the name, please know that science is a process. It is not a story. Science does not tell us where we are, where we came from, who we are, any of that. It is a process by which we can figure that out, and people have used that process in order to give us stories that you can choose to believe in. And at the same time, there are other stories that have been made and given and passed down between many generations of humans that might also make you feel good. And maybe they don't have the word scientific in front of it because it didn't go through the specific process. But it's still up to you what you want to believe. All right, with that, we're going to put on some more music. The story of existence. We've had a lot of people make up a lot of things. To me, I think the most important part is if it makes sense. Because I'm trying to express something bigger than myself in words. A thing that I can understand. Obviously, I am going to get a lot of it. A lot of it is going to be wrong. Because I am just me. But we can try. So here goes. A story of existence. One that actually makes sense. We found out this thing that exists in the universe. We called it gravity. It's when mass attracts. It's the reason you're standing on the planet as you are. It's the reason when you drop something it falls. It's attracted to the earth. Maybe you've seen videos of people messing with stuff in low gravity situations like the space shuttle. We've done lots of stuff on gravity. We know that it's real. We don't understand all of it, but it's real. Well, this thing called gravity is attracting mass to mass. And then that new mass attracts more, and more, and more, and more. And eventually, it's so much that it squeezes together the inside bits that explode. That makes a star. It exists in a delicate balance until it's done. And when it's done, it launches everything out. And that stuff becomes new stars. Well, in the process of a star forming, sometimes it makes some planets. When there's stuff around and it's still being pulled and it's still finding its way into an orbit. Google the term accretion. It'll give you some good videos to help you understand. Well, on this planet, somehow there came to be life. This is an IDK moment. We're not really sure how. But this life exists and it's really good at persisting. Life finds a way. Well, in the process of finding a way, it has discovered, invented, words are hard here. It adapted. It mutated. And those mutations were sometimes beneficial. And then the ones that didn't have the beneficial thing, well, they died. We are what's left, the ones that haven't yet died. We are aware of this place here. We exist inside of an organism, this being we call a human. It came nearly from nothing, and yet here we are. What a story. What an accomplishment to have made it this long and still be here. Well, that was an interesting learning experience for me to see that it is pretty darn difficult to actually explain concepts that I would explain in science class while in the flow because I feel like there's so many more words that I want to use. At the same time, maybe it's actually a good thing to limit me in my word usage because what I have found is that the scientific world, or more clearly to say, the people who spend their time dealing with the world in a scientific way, and expressing themselves with the words that they would typically use in their scientific stories. It means that people have become really technical. And there's so many people out in the world who know so many things. And so many of those things have their own vocabulary. They have words that a typical person's never heard of before. Or maybe they rephrase those words to mean something different. Like Slack. Ask a computer programmer about Slack versus, or stack, versus what you think that means, like when it comes to climbing, or like a slack line, if you're, or like you're slacking off, you know? Like, words are just different. And I was once told that to get a message across, you need to be less shaman, more showman. Because the shaman speaks in riddles. They live on the mountain and forgotten what regular language is. So they don't make any sense. But the showman made you feel something. And that's what's going to stick with you. Whether you remember the words or the ideas or not, the feelings stay there so much longer. And I think that shaman is a term that needs to be shifted a bit, because right now people can think of the word and they think of nature, they think of someone who is chanting or playing some simple instrument. Maybe there's some sort of medicine, there's a fire nearby, smoke, face paint, feathers, bones. But a shaman is really just a person who is trying to understand this world and has dug so deep through a specific lens, using specific perspectives and words to be able to express those perspectives, to be able to just see what this world is. And there are many other people who have dug into what this place is, because there's so many parts of it. You know, there's computers, that's a whole part of it. There's medicine, that's an entire thing. There's chemicals, that's a huge part. There's sports, you know, there's so much that exists that has so much nuance and detail inside of it, that in order to be fully understanding, you have to neglect other parts of the world in order to spend your time and energy focusing on what you find important. And that's going to mean that you're going to eventually change the words that you use and the way you express them to be more suited for people who also understand what you understand. However, that means that everyone else who doesn't understand what you understand, who doesn't follow you down your rabbit hole, will not be able to understand you. You will speak like the shaman who lives on the mountain. You'll speak in riddles. You know, ask someone who doesn't understand any sports a question about sports, and they will be completely clueless. Ask someone who has no idea what different programming languages are about a specific issue you're having on your code, and they will think you're speaking in a different language. And in a way you are. And that's why when presenting ideas, a story is a very powerful tool. And even the scientific process has used that tool in creating the scientific paper, where we write down exactly what we did, and then we tell you what we saw. My story. This is what I did, this is what I saw. That's the story. I just did it a bunch of times so that way I could verify if it was something else causing the problem, whatever. If you can present a story, then people can choose whether they want to believe in it. And if they want to believe in it, then they can give power to that story. And if that story can gain enough power from enough people, then it can become the authority of what we as the people perceive as truth. This is how we are going to elevate ourselves into the next realm of society, what we want to call the next level of civilization. Who knows, whatever words you want to call it. It's the point in history when we as people begin to have the awareness that we, the individual, are powerful enough to create changes on the entire whole of all of us, sheerly through our belief. sheerly. Is that even a word? There you go. Perfect example. Words don't actually have to be real for you to understand them. All right. We're getting way out here. I appreciate you for listening. If you got this far, we're going to keep on going kind of crazy. Yeah, that's what the next episode's about craziness. I'll see you there.